If you are celiac and diabetic, how long does it take to turn around if you are now eating a clean diet? That's a great question, Filene. 18 months. Honestly, 18 months. Now, that doesn't mean you don't feel better from day one of diet change until 18 months out. Most people feel dramatically better before that, but to completely turn around, to completely regain, if you're doing everything well, about 18 months. Let's see here. Is there a correlation between gluten issues and tinnitus? Yes, a huge one. Tinnitus, which is ringing of the ears, is definitely one of the neurological manifestations of gluten-induced damage. So somebody's asking, Mark's asking about lithium orotate. I assume you mean orotate. You're spelling it rotate, but I just assume you dropped the O in the spelling. So lithium orotate. There's some good research on lithium enhancing vitamin B12 absorption. So as it relates to B12, that may be one of the things it could be useful for. Can vitamin B12 help my nerves and breathing because I have a breathing problem? It depends on whether or not your vitamin B12 is causing, being low is causing those issues. So again, a lot of the questions are, can B12 help this or can it help that? It can if it's causing, the deficiency is causing your problem. So B12 is playing a role in your nerve damage. Can taking B12 help it? It absolutely can. I've seen people who thought they had multiple sclerosis, who actually just had severe forms of vitamin B12 deficiency, and that's all it took. That's all it took to get them off their walkers and to get them walking and balanced and functioning again, was just some good old-fashioned B12. Linda's asking about yeast as a B vitamin support. I don't like yeast because of the way that they're processed. Generally speaking, not a good process. As far as medicinal mushrooms, for what purpose? I mean, there's a lot of different medicinal mushrooms. They can be very helpful. I mean, there's, I mentioned shiitake, but there's lion's mane, and there's just a whole, there's millions of species of yeast or mushroom, but many of them have been medicinal for thousands of years that help support immune function. So maybe ask me specifically which ones you mean. Oh, man. I can't answer that, Mark, but you gave me a smile. Who has the best organic dry nuts and fruits? I don't think anybody necessarily has the best. I think there's a lot of great places you can buy dry nuts and fruits. I think you just got to find a company or a local farm that you trust that you can get these types of products from if you're not growing your own. Is whey intolerance just like gluten intolerance? I'm experiencing this on what may be a gluten-free product that I love. It can be. So again, you could react to dairy much in the same way that you can react to gluten, as I mentioned earlier. Julie, it might be effective or helpful for you to go watch my video on gluten versus dairy and just get a 10,000-foot overview of that. Let's see. My B12 is constantly high in my blood. I pulse a high-quality multi. I have hydrogen SIBO. So that may be part of the issue. Only symptoms are distension and constipation. Why is my B12 continuously high in my labs? Because of SIBO. So one of the things that happens with SIBO, and you got to get that SIBO under control, and that can actually artificially drive up your B12. Let me show you. Let's go back to this diagram that I had on the board earlier. Okay, so most of the bacteria live here, right, in your colon. When you have SIBO, what happens is you get all kinds of bacteria living here. And these bacteria that are overgrowing in your small intestine, creating the gas, the bloating, the discomfort, and the other symptoms, what are they making? They're making cobalamine, they're making B12. And so they're making it before you get to the ileum. And so you've got all this B12 that's being overproduced by your bacteria that now has the ability to get absorbed into your bloodstream. And that may be one of the reasons why your B12 comes back high, especially when you pulse it with a multi. If that multi's got a decent dose of B12 in it, you could run high. Serum-wise, you could run high quite regularly. Can you reverse a neuropathy if you correct your B12 deficiency? Cindy's asking. Yes, Cindy, you absolutely can. Although I would say sometimes a neuropathy is not just B12. A lot of times it comes, neuropathies come in threes. B12, B6, and folate deficiency are common kind of contributing factors to neuropathy, those three B vitamins. And actually B1 is also very common in that grouping of B vitamins as well, B1 deficiency. Somebody's asking about the optimal level for homocysteine is just under 9. If it's under 9, you're pretty good. But really between like 6 and 9 is a really great range for your homocysteine to sit at. Did I cover MTHFR? Lots of times. MTHFR, it's probably too broad of a topic to jump into tonight. If you've got a specific question about MTHFR, I can answer that. Let's scroll down on, oh, here we go. Here's one on chemo. After chemo, dealing with neuropathy, memory fog, I can't complain with my Hashi. So one of the things that chemo does is it really, really damages this whole area. It just knocks it out. Chemo is very, very toxic to the GI tract. And so what happens is people that have or that are on chemo, their guts, they become super nauseous, right? And they don't want to eat anything. And so they have a decreased eating, decreased caloric intake because of this damage. One of the things that can be done is high doses of B12 and folate. And I wouldn't take just the B12 without the folate in case of chemo, because chemo also affects folate. But you can get upwards of 1,500, and for B12, 10,000, as I mentioned earlier, 10,000 micrograms daily, and 1,500 for folate. Like, then that's for folate. That's milligrams, not micrograms. In tandem with each other, in combination. And a lot of times this will effectively help a person who's struggling very badly with chemotherapeutic symptoms. So I would just say this, these are things you can do, but always get with your chemotherapy doctor to run that by them. Does having celiac disease cause sleep apnea? It sure can, but not for everyone. It can be a symptom of celiac or gluten sensitivity. Let's see, Teresa says, I went on a strict low-carb diet and lost 100 pounds and developed severe pelvic organ prolapse. What do you recommend? You got to get with somebody, Teresa. If you lose that kind of weight, organ prolapse is not... It's something that can happen because of the weight loss and the actual physical change of your frame. You got to really have, get with a PT, a physical therapist that specializes in pelvic floor activities and exercises. That's the best thing that you could start with, aside from getting your nutrition dialed in. Would you consider running for president? No, I would never consider running for president. That would be horrible. Those people are vultures. Don't want to have anything to do with them. Why does metformin cause B12 depletion? It's not just metformin, but one of its mechanisms of action is it depletes folate, B12, and CoQ10. Metformin does. It also, and it's not just metformin. I said many of your cardiovascular drugs for high blood pressure also cause vitamin B12 deficiency, and it's because they impair its absorption. And that's, it's ironic. I'm glad you actually asked that question, because metformin is used to treat diabetes, which is high blood sugar. And if we look at diabetes as a whole, one of the biggest side effects is neuropathy, right? You hear about the diabetic neuropathy, but the medicine, metformin, will reduce B12, folate, and CoQ10. And so depletion of these three cause neuropathy too. So one of the questions I've always asked, and we're actually doing some research on it, is it really a diabetic neuropathy, or is it a drug-induced neuropathy that's happening as a result of the treatment of the disease? We know that if you've been on metformin for 4 months or more, you're going to start seeing this type of problem set in. And that's the problem, is by the time a person's typically been on a drug for that long, you know, doctors will usually look for side effects of a medication within the first few weeks of the use of that medication. But after that, you've been on that drug, and especially you get 4 months in, no doctor's really thinking that the drug is now all of a sudden creating a problem. And this is just an area in medicine where there's no training, or very poor training for the vast majority of doctors who make the prescriptions for these different medications. And so it's just an unfortunate side effect of the system that we live and work in. Okay. Let's keep going down on the right. Okay, where are we at in our poll? It looks like we're still at 57. Yeah, 57%, almost 200 of you have voted. 57% have brain fog most days. The poll's actually, if you're on Facebook, you don't see it. If you're on the YouTube feed, you can see that poll. It's on the upper right-hand side. I think I answered that one. B12 levels were very high. I think I answered that. A lot of repeat questions in here. So a lot of you are asking just about B12. Can it be too high? You know, is it toxic? I've not seen in 21 years of practicing almost purely nutrition, I've never seen anybody have an overdose or a toxicity side effect of B12, even at high doses. And what I have seen is some people don't tolerate methylcobalamin, but that's not the same thing. They tolerate hydroxycobalamine. They don't tolerate methylcobalamin, so a little bit different. But as far as the serum levels, I can put you on 2,000 micrograms of B12. It's going to raise your serum levels dramatically within a few days. And so you can, like I said, the serum is not, it's not the cornerstone for what we measure to assess whether or not you have adequate B12, because within 2 days of supplementation, you're going to see serum rise, but the intracellular levels need time to come up, and sometimes you have to saturate the serum to get that B12 into the cell where it actually does its job. If somebody has nerve damage not caused by diabetes but caused by trauma or surgery, can those nerves be repaired by the same things that help with diabetic nerve damage, like alpha-lipoic acid? It can be, depending on the extent of the trauma and the damage and how much surgical damage was there. So like, if the surgeon did a very bad job and really botched it up, we may have permanent neurological deficit in that area. But if it was just, you know, the trauma of the surgery itself, yeah, a lot of times if you've got good solid nutrition coming into you, the B vitamins, alpha-lipoic acid can be very helpful. A good multi-complex, a good omega, all those things can be very helpful for recovering from post-surgical damage. I used to suffer brain fog until I learned about treating my fungal infections. Love that. So yeah, I mean, fungus is another thing, like candida. Nobody's really asked that today, but candida overgrowth inside of your GI tract can actually deplete your B vitamins, and B12 being one of them. Yeah, B12 can definitely cause sleep apnea. I think we mentioned gluten can cause sleep apnea, but B12 can cause sleep apnea because if you're anemic because of B12 deficiency, again, when you lie down and try to go to sleep, your brain is not getting adequate oxygen, you're going to wake up frequently. You're not going to have sound, peaceful sleep without oxygen. So somebody's asking, I was hot, let's see, oh, I went too far. No, you went, yeah, keep going down. Oh, back up just a hair. Okay, so here's one. Can appendectomy, go back up just a little bit. Can appendectomy cause a B12 deficiency? I've not seen an appendectomy be associated with B12 loss, but you remember the appendix is kind of a reservoir for good bacteria, and it's very close to your colon. So again, by the time that reservoir is kicking out, the B12 is past the stage in your intestines where it's effectively absorbed. Can you have normal MCV and MCH and still have a B12 deficiency? Yes, you can, Amber, absolutely. Penny's question on B12 test at 598. If you're talking about serum, that's not great. 598 is not great. I would consider that, the lower side of serum. So somebody's asking me if I have a hydroxycobalamine. I think they're taking one of my methylcobalamin, and the answer is yes, we actually do. We have a hydroxycobalamine product. I think it's actually in the description below. If you're on our YouTube channel, it's in the description below. We've got a hydroxy link in there for you. Any idea, Vicky's asking, any idea why the neurologist today said you can't absorb vitamin B12 through the cheeks? Yeah, because he's ignorant of the fact that you can. That's the only reason why I would think he would say that. He said it's rare to get a seizure from B12 deficiency. I would say it's more common to have seizure with vitamin B1 deficiency than it is with B12, but I wouldn't by any stretch say rare. I'd say this, Vicki, and I don't want to put words in the neurologist's mouth or even speak poorly of him. I don't know him. I don't want to extrapolate the meaning from a secondhand conversation that we're having online. But the reality is most doctors don't even measure B vitamins. So how do they know it's rare? Like if they're measuring them in every patient with epileptic seizure disorder, and they have like 20 years of experience measuring and seeing it, and they're making that claim, it would be a lot different than to just say, oh, it's rare because I said so. And even though I'm not going to measure yours or bother with measuring yours, to me, that's just speaking from ignorance and not speaking from a place of light and benefit. Let's see, Lily says, I got a blood test. The sodium is on the low end of the normal range. Could that cause cramping? It can. Yes, low sodium can. One of the best things you can do if you're low sodium is add electrolytes to your water, especially if you're using reverse osmosis filtered water. But we've got something called ultra electrolytes, and for every 20 ounces of water you add, actually I think I do, because I put it in my own bottle. Looks like that. It's called ultra electrolytes, and you put a half a teaspoon in your water for every 20 ounces of water. So I put about a half a teaspoon in my can and drink 3 or 4 of these a day. Let's see, can B vitamins cause anxiety? I think I answered that. Too many B vitamins can cause anxiety, especially in some people. Robert says, I wake up with both hands numb and have severe upper thigh pain when going up the steps. Is that due to B12 deficiency? It's possible. Again, it's possible, but is that actually what's happening? It's the old adage. Is a lot of people say, it's usually never one thing. Everybody's entitled to more than one problem. So your B12 deficiency, if you have it, yes, could it cause upper thigh pain? Of course it can, but you may also have a CoQ10 deficiency or a magnesium deficiency. And so there may be multiple nutrient issues that are going on that are contributing to that series of symptoms that you're experiencing. Are B12 shots safe? Yeah, they're relatively safe. I don't like them, but it's not that I don't ever recommend them. It's that when you can accomplish with the lozenge without having to break the skin or inject something into the bloodstream or not in the bloodstream, but directly into the muscle, then I'd much rather not have to break the skin on somebody. It's just generally safer. Nicole's asking, when will you have a good food sensitivity test ready for us to use? Man, we are getting so close, Nicole. We're actually trying to come out in January. We're trying to do it with both micronutrient testing, where you can actually get online access to testing your vitamins and minerals inside your cells, and also being able to properly do food sensitivity testing. My team and I have been working on this diligently for the last many months, and we're hoping to have that solution for you guys sometime in January of 2022. So just be a little bit more patient with me. So is high B12 a sign of SIBO? It can be, but not always, no. Yeah, so Paige is asking, my serum B12 levels come back slightly elevated. I take a B complex daily, but my doctor said to stop. I thought your body got rid of excess B12. It does. Again, B vitamins are not toxic, so your levels could be high in your serum. There's really only one B vitamin you got to have any concern about being toxic, and that's vitamin B6. But the others are for the most part, completely non-toxic. Your body's going to pee out the excess. It's one of the reasons why your yellow is urine when you take a B complex. So Michelle's asking about glutamine, the benefits of glutamine, and whether or not it can fuel cancer. I generally would say no. The answer to that is no. But my experience in helping people with glutamine, Michelle, is we do testing. So we test to see if they're deficient in glutamine or not, and then we recommend it. And generally speaking, you're not going to cause cancer by giving a nutrient of something a person is actually low in, especially something like glutamine that plays such a critical role. But no, I'd say you're far more likely to develop cancer by drinking diet sodas, eating sugar, breathing in the chemicals from hairsprays and cosmetics, and the plasticizers from drinking out of plastic, etc. So I wouldn't put glutamine at the top of my high-risk development of cancer nutrients, or anything for that matter. Let's see. My B12 is 300. Is that good, or should it be higher? It's not great. If you're talking about serum B12 levels. Could waking up with hands numb and severe upper thigh pain? I think I answered that one already. So B12 causing ferritin levels to raise when taking iron doesn't, because your B12 shots are causing liver damage. Anytime you have high levels of ferritin, ferritin is a marker for iron storage in the body. But when it's elevated, it's an indicator, it's what's called an acute phase reactant. So it's a protein that elevates in the blood when you have inflammation. If you're taking that B12 shot and every time you see your ferritin levels go up after, it's probably because that B12 shot has some kind of a either contaminant or filler or other ingredient that your liver doesn't like. That would be on the top of my list of suspicions. Can deficiency of B12 cause chronic fatigue? It can, and as well, can it cause fibromyalgia? It's associated with fibromyalgia. It definitely can cause the fatigue and the muscular pain that is so common in people that with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue suffer with. What's better, sublingual or shots? I think I answered that question. I prefer sublinguals. So, Salita, I see you were hospitalized with low counts, low red counts, white counts, low potassium, and lots of stomach issues. You really, I mean, I'm not going to be able to help you solve that. I mean, you've got to get with somebody who understands this really, really well and work with them kind of in a one-on-one setting. I wish I could be more help in this YouTube video, but really, you've got to get direct one-on-one help. There's too much going on there. Let's see here. C-reactive protein involved with adequate B12? Not so much. CRP is generally a generalized sign of systemic inflammation in the body. Now, that being said, systemic inflammation can cause depletion of B12 at a faster rate. But so, I mean, if you're looking for a connection, that would be probably the closest thing to one. Can too much B12 cause elevated liver enzymes? I've never seen that be the case. I've never seen B12 cause too much elevation in liver enzymes, not once. And again, I use with people very commonly 10 to 12,000 micrograms of B12 as a daily dose for many months at a time. Never, and that's a very, very strong dose. Never seen an elevation in liver enzymes as a result of B vitamin supplementation in that way. Now, B6, there's a plausible possibility that could do it, but not B12. Can Guillain-Barré nerve damage be repaired with supplementation? It certainly can be. The healing process can be supported and healed. So if you've got something like GBS, which is an autoimmune form of neurological damage, what you really need to do is look at all the triggers for autoimmunity. So, you've got food as a trigger, chemicals as a trigger, microbial dysfunction or imbalance as a trigger, and nutritional deficit as a trigger. So all 4 of those things really have to be addressed to get to the root and to be successful. Is it better to take a B complex rather than just one in particular? Sometimes. If you're just generally supplementing, it can be, but if you're severely deficient, no, it can be very, very good to get a mega bolus dose to get you over the hump. Let's see. Keep scrolling down. Keep going. Yeah, I think I answered that one. A lot of these are repeat. How can you assure quality when purchasing B12? Trusted sources would be the main thing. I know when we source ours, we have technology to do testing that probably most of you don't get access to, but we do, HPLC and mass spec testing on all the products that come into our warehouse so that we can understand if there's any contaminants or understand that what we're actually ordering and getting in is what it's supposed to be. Whereas in the supplement industry, it's ripe with, unfortunately, with corruption. There's a lot of people that, don't put what they say is in their product, and they kind of fly under the radar. So reputable brand is probably one of the best things you as a consumer on the other end can just find a brand that you like, that you trust, as opposed to just buying any old brand. Is there a risk of B12 deficiency in Lyme disease patients? Yeah, any disease of chronic inflammation is going to increase the nutritional demand that your body has in order to compensate for that increase in inflammation. So yes, really, we could make that claim in anyone with any infectious disease. There's a risk of malnutrition associated with chronic autoimmune or chronic inflammatory infectious diseases because your body's trying to combat that illness and combat the inflammation that's caused by that illness. And what does it use to combat that? It uses B vitamins. It uses nutrients to do that. So this is why it's so important, folks, to measure. A lot of you take vitamins, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's so important if you're really struggling with illness, it's so important to get with somebody who knows how to measure it accurately and really guide you along the right path. Yeah, so a lot of questions about the jab and side effects. The neurological side effects. Can B vitamins help with those? We don't know, but if these are like any other, I've seen post injury in kids, after getting their shots, and been able to help a lot with B vitamins and NAC and other detoxification elements. So it's definitely possible, and I certainly wouldn't rule that out as a potential to do. How does Barrett's esophagus link to gluten issues? Yeah, so Barrett's esophagitis is very commonly caused by gluten. Gluten is not the only cause for it, but very much. I can pull out of my archives of studies, of not studies, but clinical here in the practice, and we could pull out 500 cases easy of recovery of Barrett's esophagitis on a gluten-free diet. So in my experience, hands down, the two are connected. But even the researchers that study this would agree with that statement. And we got more questions than we got time tonight. So Marilyn's asking about kind of like supporting the immune system for the disease that shall not be named. Marilyn, check out my if you're not signed up for my newsletter, for my email newsletter, you should definitely go over to glutenfreesociety.org and sign up, because we generally we put out content and information that's very helpful. But check my Facebook page. I put out a post just yesterday where we talked about the different things that have been researched that can be very supportive of immune function. Okay. Man, the questions just keep coming in. Guys, I got to go home and eat dinner. So it's 7:20. I'm going to go home and eat. You should eat. Thank you for tuning in to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. I hope it was worth your time. I had a great time with you tonight. If you liked what you heard, do me a favor. Our goal here is to save 100 million lives. I need your help to share this information with those that you love. So, hit the share button below, copy the URL, paste it, send it to a friend, to a relative, somebody that you know could use this information and help me save and help more people. That's our relationship, right? I feed you every Monday night. You feed your family, friends, and loved ones with the information, and together we help achieve greater knowledge and awareness throughout the world. So I wish you a fantastic week. We'll be right here again next Monday for another episode of Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Take care, and we'll see you then. Hey, if you've got a functional medicine or health question that you'd like me to answer for you, make sure you send me an email, glutenology@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to create a video answer just for you. Have a great day.